Okay, the first thing you should do for this lesson is download the Lesson 4 files from Moodle and then create a new site for that. So remember, create a site. We go to Site, go to New Site. Here I'm going to name the site Lesson 4. Then we go to the Lesson 4 site, and I'm going to select that one and go ahead and save it. Notice all of the files that we have here that belong to this particular project. And notice here, Lesson 4 is the site that we're working on. So any changes are made relative to this directory right here. So what we want to do now is we're going to create some cascading style sheets. And cascading style sheet allows us to define how our web pages look. You've already done some of that with the cascading style sheet that you put internal to a document. We're also going to learn how to do it external to a document. But before we begin that, we want to take a look at how it was done in the past so we have an understanding of why we want to use cascading style sheets. So the first thing I want you to do is to go ahead and open up the font tag list.html file that's over here. So I'll double click on that. And then notice that we have a list here and each of those list elements are blue. So if we look at the code for that, notice here we have defined the font, we have the color, we've changed the size of the font, we've given it a different font family, and then we apply it to the beats. So here it ends the font. Notice that for each element we have to redefine that over and over again. So think of a web page that has 10 or 20 or 30 different elements like this, and you would have to redefine the same thing over and over again. That's very inefficient. And then if you go to make changes, you're going to make changes to all of these and not just one of them, because if you leave one of them off, then that one will look different than all the others. So this is the font tag the way it used to be, directly into the HTML code. Now let's go back to the design view, and we're going to add another list element. Press enter at the end of eggplants, and then we're going to type in peppers. Notice that it goes back to the original font and the original size of list items. It is not with the new font that we included here. We would have to go back and change the peppers item to match the eggplant that we would do. So again, this is redundant, having to do this over and over. There's a better way to do this. Let's go ahead and close this file, and we can save the changes to it, just so that it's up. So now what we're going to do is we're going to see the benefits of placing this internal to a file as opposed to doing each individual item. So what we want to do is to open up this CSS list.html file, and notice here we have our beets, cucumbers, and eggplants again. I'm going to go to the last item here. This time when I type in peppers, notice it's in that same font. And the reason for that is, let's look at the code. Notice over here I redefine a list item. I define the font family that I want to use, and remember, in a font family it tries to use the first one. If the first one's not there, then it tries the second one. If the second one is not there also, then it tries the third one. And we usually have some default font that's available on any system to be able to use. We change the font size to 13 pixels. We change the font weight to bold, and we change the color to, remember, the first two are red, second two are green, the last two are blue, so it's the brightest blue possible for this. And then this ends that particular style element. Here is the close brace, here's the open brace. So everything between here belongs to the list item that we have up here. Back to our design view, When we come back to the end of peppers and we add another item, notice again that same item is also in that same text without having to redo things over and over again. So this makes it easier to go ahead and make changes. So if I would come over here and make a change to this to 15 pixels, click my refresh button so my design view is refreshed. Design, notice it's a little bit bigger than it was before. So it's easy to make changes. All I gotta do is make changes in one place, and it applies to all the elements that use this particular tag anywhere in this document. Let's switch back to design view and let's go ahead and save our work, and then let's go ahead and close that particular file. Right now what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at this Dreamweaver CSS controls. We're not going to make any changes right now. We're just going to learn what the controls are. So what we first want to do is go to the window command, check CSS styles if it's not checked already, and you should see this shows all the rules that we have. These shows only the current ones. So this item right here shows the category view. This shows the list view. This shows only set properties. This is attach a style sheet to a file. This is a new CSS rule. This next one is edit a style sheet. This one is disable and enable CSS property. And this is to delete and unlink a document. So let's go ahead and over here, let's open up the stylesplaces.html file. So now we have our new document here. Okay, what we want to do is move our cursor to here, and notice it has a double arrow, and we can move this portion to a different location to see different properties. Okay, now notice if I click on the second paragraph, notice how the properties change to red for this particular item. So this shows the current one. Notice here current is selected. So let's click back to all. This will show all the text that we use. Notice I have a style here, and that was red. That's the one we just looked at. And then there's a style places css.css file. This is a cascading style sheet, and notice that's for our green text. So again, we want to click in the second paragraph, make sure it's selected there. Notice down here in the class I have red. I could choose the green text, which means it'll be formatted with the external sheet like here, or we can do it in line with the red that has it here. I press the CSS button. Notice it gives me a targeted rule, and this is where I define the rule. It tells the font that I want to use, the color that I want to use, and the size of that particular rule. Okay, so let's take a look of the code. So if your cursor is not in the second paragraph, go ahead and click in it. Let's go ahead and click code. And notice I have a dot red. So this is a new element I'm defining. And I give a color, font family, a font size. And notice over here, when I want to use that, I'll put paragraph, and then I give a class name. Class equals red. So it's going to use the one that I defined up here with the dot red.